so it's now recording. I record my speeches nowadays, so I can look back and be like, oh god, what did I say? How did I say it that badly, and so on. But the good thing is you get the video in YouTube after my talks. If you don't want to be in the video by asking questions, ask me after the talk. If you don't care, feel free to ask questions while I'm talking. So I'm Kallis Riga. I work as a field CPO in Ethicode. We're Europe's largest Atlassian partner at the moment, I think. And we do also like GitHub and AI and all that other stuff in the software development lifecycle. So our mission is future of software development. So before going into the Jira cloud and that side, I wanted to kind of ground why is Atlassian forcing everybody to go to cloud. This is how we see the modern organization in the development and what's happening in the cloud side. So we used to do marketing discovery. Most of you are probably doing that, and it takes 2 weeks. It used to be like we had requirements, and that goes to Jira. We define requirements. Then we had AI development, nowadays AI-driven development. Then we had test automation or testing in there. Then we created security and compliance requirements, and we had all of that there. You might have heard SonarQube, SAS, DUST, comparables. And then you deploy the system to production, and then you improve in the production. And all of this used to take 2 weeks in Agile. We moved to 1 week sprints in some places. And now if you look at what the white coders of the world are doing, we're seeing this happen within 5 minutes or faster. So you see people also getting hacked in the same speed. It's not be like that this is currently the best possible way. But we're seeing features being shipped faster than ever, which has increased burnout rate in development, it has increased our risks, it has increased our security stuff, and we as an IT are figuring things out with this new methodology. But if you consider, for example, Atlassian, if you're capable of deploying a feature constantly, I don't know if you have seen Atlassian's robo apps, which allows you to create custom fields on the fly and custom applications on the fly inside Atlassian nowadays by prompting. So you don't need to buy a small application that creates custom field like you used to do in data center. All of that became possible with AI, but it's also due to the fact that they don't have to think about how do we actually spread this across everybody and what are the things that break across all of these different deployments and environments. And that's kind of behind the business reason. The other side is why Atlassian is ending the data center. It's over 10 years old. So they've been developing it for 20 years at this point. They've been developing data center version for 10 years. And data center was pivot from server. Versus the cloud version, they kind of took the learnings that they had on the data center, so moving from server to data center. They found all those different problems and rewrote it. It used to be so that they took the server and they deployed those instances and ran that in the cloud. I don't know if any one of you used that, but it was an experience, let's say it this way. That was the time when we migrated customers out of the cloud. So their goal is kind of to reduce and remove limitations of the data center that is currently affecting their customers. We've been seeing this like high maintenance overhead. Like anybody who has million tickets in Jira, okay, nobody. That's where you start having these nice issues with Jira. So we have customers that have 1 terabyte database on Confluence. That's a lot of documents. And managing that is already a lot of work. Managing that and migrating that is a lot of work for us, but it's also something that's going to really speed up their work and capability of doing things when they don't have to worry about how do we manage the terabytes of database. We get easier disaster where we get more scalability and flexibility. With data center, theoretically, you can put more instances next to each other. But if you try to do auto-scaling with Atlassian Data Center, anybody running Atlassian Data Center in Kubernetes, for example? No. So what can end up happen is that the indexes get broken every time you spin up a new instance. So what ends up happening is you have a completely broken instance constantly, because you're auto-scaling those instances side by side. They have been fixing this in the history, but they are kind of reducing these kind of problems from the customers. there is the whole, how do we distribute these collections? How do we distribute features? Your security and compliance has had this. How many of you have gotten the phone call in the next morning after Atlassian security release? Are we affected by the CVE 10? And you're like, our instance is in the basement and it doesn't have internet even. Yeah, interesting talk, communications and discussions. And they have had this challenge that knowledge and the data is very siloed. So if you've been trying to use Jira and Conference, you're thinking like, it's one vendor. How hard could it be to integrate these two? Those that have tried to have figured out that it's pretty hard actually. And then the whole new features coming in. So I want to also lift up the key dates that was mentioned. So you know, if you need a new Bitbucket license, for example, or new licenses, this month is the last month you can buy a brand new license. So if you need a new data center license, you have to buy it now. I have a customer that is doing demerger at the moment. So they're taking part of their business and they're throwing it to another company. That means that they're going to need new licenses. And that not all of their systems are in cloud yet. They have a Bitbucket. They now need to buy a Bitbucket data center before March 30th for the other company that doesn't even exist, because they haven't done the demerger yet. The other thing is, end of sales to existing customers, so upgrades end on March 30th, 2028, so you can't buy expansions at that point. So if your user amounts go up over your current limit, not going to happen after 2028. So March 30th is your list of, if we're going to grow as a company, I have to be in cloud. And then, March 28, 2029, end of life. You have to be in cloud, or your system doesn't work. It's read-only. So that means you have 4 options. You stay on data center, there's no new innovations, security patches arrive, and March 2029, the system is read-only. You go to Atlassian Cloud, you get all of the new features. The price does increase a bit compared to the previous, but if you calculate your current costs of maintenance and upkeeping, you usually come up positive on the ROI, so return on investment. Most of the time, money is not the problem on going to Atlassian Cloud. It's usually applications, management, and like changing the company. I'll be coming to the impact portion. There is an Atlassian isolated cloud. How to say it nicely? There is probably no company in the Nordics/Baltics that will be going to this one. The required amount of users was, I think, 20,000 users in the instance or more. So that is kind of like, it exists, but there are requirements of 15,000. I haven't written down, so I don't remember it. And it is not available until this year, and it has a lot of things, but there is an isolated cloud if you happen to be big enough customer of Atlassian. Or you go to some other platform. All 3 of these are developer-first platforms that I have here. There are a few others that might work, but the problem is it impacts your whole business. This is what is using Atlassian Cloud at the moment, or Atlassian in your instances most likely. So you develop the team, you have your requirements, you have a lot of your security probably there, we use security desk there, you have your architecture documents in Confluence, you have your application development, like you do your weeklies, you document things there, you have your cloud solutions, they write their documentation there, your policies are usually on Atlassian Cloud, you might have your service management there if you're using Jira Service Management, and then the big problem, your business and management. Most of us have brought our HR there, finance. What's the better system? Like this already exists. We have this service desk component, we have this, and we have this security topic, and it integrates to the development and other stuff really easily. It actually works. So now the question becomes, okay, so if I want to replace this system that is Atlassian with some other tool, what covers all of these different roles? And that's where it gets really difficult. Like I can tell you what's a good HR system, I can tell you a good Riga system, I can tell you a good architect system. But finding all of them in one package like Atlassian has been for us is really difficult. And you don't really want to split this information either in the age of information. So this is kind of like when you start thinking about, okay, we don't want to go cloud or we have challenges, usually when you start thinking who is impacted, most organizations that I've been talking have been able to find a route to cloud. I have few super high security companies that now, after crying, fighting, and denying, have come back this year and been like, well, actually, that was the data that we have. We can probably classify it as public key, close enough to public that we can put it into the public cloud, as long as we can encrypt it. And Atlassian has an encryption service which you can buy, and you can encrypt the data. So, on the other side, because your manager is going to ask, what kind of return on investment are we going to get? Like, come on, you're telling me more costs? Come on, we have inflation, even the gasoline costs more. We've all seen that, 2 euros in pump. Like, no. Well, the reality is, like, Atlassian did research on this. And again, this is Atlassian's research, so don't use them in exact because your managers are not going to believe them, even if you would get them. Same as AI research. We say that we're going to be 30% faster, and then your manager says we're not going to be 30% faster. And you're like, but I have 10 different studies showing it. Yeah, we're not going to be. That's why you put 10% and it still looks good. So Atlassian and Tech Validate found that they saw a 20% increase in the developer productivity. They found 46% increase in employee engagement. And this comes from the fact that, like, Atlassian's UI has never been the greatest, if you've ever noticed. It's like, it's good enough. But in cloud, they've been able to actually take it further and make it a bit more aligned. So you can see that you have your Jira here, and it integrates to Confluence, and you can even put the goals. I don't have time today to explain a lot about new features, but you can really build these unified views across different data sources in a project. So you don't need to jump around different UIs and figure out where is this Confluence space. It can exist with the Jira space really closely. They saw the 2 to 4 times faster software release, so this is usual when you move towards cloud. You become faster at releasing because you have less of this, how to say it nicely, guessing about your environments. We've been doing 20 years of software development and helping customers be better at software development. Usually when we start a test automation case, it becomes very quickly a deployment and test environment fixing case, because they have no test environments usually. And if you want to spin up a new test environment, it's really hard. We've seen 38% less context switching. Comes from the fact that if you can get everything into one view related to the project, you can really easily stay in one context when talking about topic. You don't have to jump around different tools, which leads to you doing something else at that point. Stay more focused. 41% insight-driven decisions. So most of us have been knifing and putting things together for the analytics part. Some of you, well, we're in Latvia, so most of you probably have ECBI and it's really giving you really good analytics, but that's not most of the time the experience with their customers. They usually have been knifing the data together and figuring out what are we even doing in Atlassian. And going to cloud and getting newer systems has increased code quality, historically, because we're not really that good at development. So how do you actually go to cloud, might be the question. Kalle, you promised us to tell us about how do we actually go to cloud. So it all starts by assessing. So we look at the risks. So every company always wants a risk assessment, like what's going to break, who's going to be affected, what's the value, can we actually go there, how's GDPR, what's HIPAA if you're in medical sales, and then the biggest thing, application assessment. So I was talking with Svetlana before, at least one of you, according to her, is really big fan of Script Runner. Nothing will work. Everything breaks, requires detailed planning on how to be actually migrated. And this is because script runner used to run on the Java runtime inside the data center, very technical details. But the thing is, all of those scripts have to be rewritten. Script runner has tools for that, which allow you to see how are you rewriting those, and like really seeing what are the things that we need to take into account. But comes up in an application assessment. We had in history cases where accelerated test management system, really fantastic system, had a challenge of moving to cloud. And we still have a challenge with them moving to cloud. If you want to do it so that you migrate this project now and next project here, you need to create those packages so that this plugin is affected in all of these projects and you migrate all of those projects at once to limit the possibility of something going wrong. Just as a note. It also is good practice because the same custom fields being used, for example, if they're not project-specific custom fields, which you should use in data center, if they change, there might be a problem because the state changes between the two environments. Then you make a plan. So we sequence. So you don't need to migrate everything in your instance at once. You usually sequence and make batches and groups when are we migrating and what, based on the analysis. So who migrates when? We plan how are we supporting. We create FAQs, we create communication plan. We align between different vendors, figure out where are the challenges, and we make a run book. This is how the actual migration is going to go. This is how we communicate. Then we do a preparation. So we usually recommend cleaning up the instance in the data center side. Which projects can be archived? What are the old stuff? What are we not needing in the cloud? We set up the access management. It's going to come up, but it's a challenge. Most of the customers have been using Atlassian's access management by LDAP and AD. Neither are available in cloud. You have to be in Azure Infra or Okta or comparable. And then you need to figure out how do we actually integrate the IDP there. So Steam is available. If you don't know what that is, it's basically how do we synchronize the users and the groups. And then we need to figure out what is the access management there, who gets access to where. And then we figure out it was already bad in the old instance. Unless you have a really good identity access management team, very rare, but hopefully someone has that. And we add it to the run book. Feel free to stop me if you have any questions. But I have more info at the end, hopefully. Then we do a test. You can have a test environment, or you can scrap the old environment in there in the cloud. You don't have to go incline and move the projects and be like we're in production now. You can have a test environment, go and click around, see what changed, and like really make a detailed documentation about topics. We can do user training in that environment. So oftentimes we move some data into the cloud so they can actually see how is it working for my data. Because it's really challenging to understand from run books and documentations what's going on. Then we do the actual migration. Oftentimes it's a weekend job because the instances are big and it allows things going wrong also. So we have a weekend until the people are back at work. We do the migration, we do pre-migration things and post-migration checks. And then we launch. We send the documentation, hey, this is where we are, this is now. And then the Teams channel or Slack channel starts ping, 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 and you answer. And you're like, hey, did you check the FAQ? You can, by the way, put an AI agent nowadays to point out, did you read the FAQ? But idea being that like we can help the customers and make sure that they feel they're getting help. Usually migrations fail on the fact that the users feel they're not getting help. Then we celebrate and speak. And then we start the post-migration tasks that we identified. This is what it looks like usually in the time scale. So we have, this is from December to June, so half a year's project. We usually see it is taking around 3 to 6 months. The longest ones take about 24 months. I don't think any one of you is in that scale, but like if you are, it's going to be a bit painful. But the 3 to 6 months is most of the time enough. So don't leave it to the 2028, because then everybody's really busy and you're going to be like in the fighting with everybody else. So the earlier you do it, the better consequences you get in the help. This is what it looks like on the calendar, the same basis basically. What challenges have we found while working with customers? So customers have no indication on what's the migration complexity, what's the timeline, when are we doing this. Nobody has put it in a plan and everybody is really against doing it at all. So it's mandatory, so you need to kind of figure that out, but that's a challenge on our Atlassian admins. Most customers have not documented what is the ERP systems connected to. So most of the time, I myself have integrated Jira to almost everything. What has it been integrated? When we did our cloud migration of our service desk, we found, I think, 50 integrations in our system where we had just automated something against Jira. Yeah, it wasn't fun to not find them in the migration testing. It would have been good that I have documented them in history. Are we compliant? How do we tell to security that this is fine? How do we say that like the data that we put there is correct? I have a customer that has no idea, and they have asked me a multitude of times to figure out, have they put the Finnish social security numbers in there? We did that once. We came up with 2 million results found. And we started going through them with the customer, and we came to a conclusion that the first 200 were valid social security numbers that do not exist. Because they need valid social security numbers for testing. So their test data is there. The problem is, how do we find out the real ones from the test data when they're all valid according to the rules? We don't. We're probably going to have to nuke all of those processes or something. They have not, for surprising reasons, gone to cloud yet. I have a customer that had used Jira as a HR system for recruitment. That kind of goes in under the special rules in the thing, not a great thing. Some of our customers have multiple instances. I don't know if you're in this bank, but there is like a lot of customers have been buying companies, and they have like, oh, we have 10 different instances of Jira and Confluence. We should probably consolidate these. We want them into one source. We want them in one instance. We don't want to buy the enterprise Atlassian. Some customers, the upload just takes time. So I said 1 terabyte of database. It might take a few months to upload that 1 terabyte at that point. It's not that long, but it still takes time because speed of light is a variable in data transfer. Some of the customers have no documentation and understanding of how are they working in Atlassian at the moment. So telling them what breaks and documenting what changes is kind of difficult. I have a customer that has had automated, they're now in cloud. They had put their, what's it called in English? They have this system for credit cards that if you find that this guy looks like he's money laundering, you have to report it in a bank. So they had this system where you would put that into a Jira. And it was for every single bank personnel, and it was like this open ticket field. And so we had to rewrite that for him, for the go to cloud. Thankfully we knew about it, but if you don't know about that kind of things, it's, yeah, because you can do really a lot of things with Atlassian. Then we have this like, oh, user provisioning in SSO. We have no idea how we're going to be doing that. We haven't even thought about that in our IT because we've been busy doing something else. or we have this instance happens to be here and it's under another company, or we have multitude of IDPs because we are like 4 different companies with 4 different emails. It gets really difficult at that point. Then we have this cloud pricing. What's premium? What does come with standard? How much do these assets cost? Are there some discounts and incentives? We want to talk to Atlassian's management. Can someone get us Atlassian management? We need to talk to them about this pricing. I had a customer that came and when the first data center server end of life came, I had a customer that called me and shouted at me for an hour. And then they told me that their CEO wants to talk to Atlassian's CEO. I let them think about it for a day, and then I came back to them and I was like, so I checked your Atlassian license bill, you're paying them 50,000 euros. Do you think your CEO will get a call with Atlassian's CEO for 50,000 euros? Then they thought about it a bit more and they realized that they're not going to get anybody from Atlassian to answer the phone. After that, it took 2 more days before they called me and apologized for shouting at me. Because I didn't do anything, I just told them the news. And then, how do we actually verify the migration path of the apps? So saying that like Scriptrunner does this, X-Ray does this, and nobody can tell you what's going to happen in your instance because you have different applications compared to other customers. Because most of the people have different plugins and they interconnect a bit, especially in cloud migration. So that gets really difficult. And your management wants to be really sure this works. And then we start discussing how do we actually test that the key functionality works. And then you are like, we don't actually know what's the key functionality. We don't know who's using this. And if some of these sound familiar, no worries. This is what everybody is having at the moment. This is the heart attack most of our customers were having. I took few customers here. So we had one customer that wanted to migrate and merge 2 instances at once. And they are the MTV, TV4, and so on, so the Finnish media moguls. So they wanted to merge their different TV things and employees into one instance to get cost savings, but also to get one place to communicate about things. So we wanted to make an common environment. We wanted to migrate them to latest versions and get those customers into the cloud to save costs. And for them, what ended up coming is that they got more time back because they were spending a lot of time on operations and maintenance that was not actually going towards the Atlassian user experience. It was going to figuring out why is Atlassian instance slow. Another good story about data center life in 10 years ago, we got a ticket from customer, Jira is slow. We spent 2 weeks figuring out how is Jira slow? Like this loading speeds are, we are under half a second. What's going on? Like who is complaining about this? Why aren't they complaining about this? It took us 2 weeks with my friend to go back to the customer and be like, can you show us what do you mean by slow? We learned quite a lot about that. They came to the call, they opened it. It opened the screen of ticket creation, which had 50 required fields. And they were like, it takes half an hour to fill this. I don't have half an hour per ticket. And they were like, yes, we can fix that. It took us 15 minutes to fix that whole problem. We had spent 2 weeks, 2 people figuring out what's going on. That's the kind of things that we spend time on before cloud. Now in cloud, we still need to figure out these Jira slow problems. It's just different slow. And if you buy the team collection thing, you can get room and you can get the room videos. And people can submit room videos to service desk, and Robo can make you really cool stuff, or you can automate these kind of things. not today's topic, but very cool stuff available for automation. And you don't need to wake up about the security vulnerabilities most of the time. There are things that require those. like when Atlassian leaked the or rotated the scheme tokens, then you needed to work. Oh, my automation has taken a problem. So another customer, this is one of the buy now pay later services in Sweden. They're known for that, like Klarna and Civilian is one of their competitors. So they had the challenge that they had a tight deadline because they didn't want to renew the old license. They didn't want any user to be affected. That was kind of a challenge. And they didn't have time or knowledge how to do it. So then we figured out, okay, what do we do? We then made a detailed mapping on the challenges that they're going to have. And we made a communication plan on how do we communicate what is actually being affected, because you're not going to not be affected. And I have way more. Well, I'll send you the slides. But yeah, so we ended up getting them no impact on the actual people who were working. Of course, the system changed, but you don't really notice it if we do it during the weekend. Because most people, if you work during the weekends, you don't need to. Just saying it out loud. We got the maintenance out of their hands. They had a really smooth change management process after that. And they got the new features into use. And yeah, I have one more, but they saved the key here was they saved over 20,000 at the end of the day. So they ended up getting a positive return on investment of 20,000 after moving to cloud, because their AWS cloud spend, if I remember correctly, was high. They spent a lot of time on the security vulnerabilities, and it was a better user experience also. So that's my slides. Now you can ask me really difficult questions. Yeah?
You mentioned in the previous slide that they had a tight timeline due to the license renewal.
Yeah.
Can you explain a bit more?
So, Atlassian, your data center license is a yearly license.
Yes.
Cloud license is a monthly license. So if you don't want to renew for the year with the data center license, you want to hit the migration as close to the end of the license as possible. And they hadn't really planned to do it, but they wanted to get to cloud at the same time. And they noticed, oh, we have this window now, or it's 1 year later. So they wanted to reach that end of the license, to move to monthly billing rate, which is usually cheaper, unless something is, it depends on the company size. So oftentimes the license teams on partners, for example our side, help you calculate that kind of which model is better. On his customer's case, they would save money by moving to the monthly billing and the cloud side. And that was basically why they wanted to get there, because they wanted the cost savings of moving there, they wanted the features, and they didn't want to wait a year. So then it became a tight deadline, because they had if I remember correctly, they had 2 months before the end of the license. So we had to run really fast, both sides. But there is these kind of deadlines that you create internally. I had another customer that had a Bitbucket license renewal coming up, and we wanted to move to GitHub. And then we had to figure out how do we get them to from Bitbucket to GitHub within a certain period of time. Our own instance of Bitbucket, we end of life last year during May. So we got the contract negotiation. We went to GitLab on that specific part. So we got the contract negotiations done on May 6th, and our license ended on June 1st. So we had 1 month to migrate all of our repositories from the Bitbucket to GitLab. We had 3,000 repositories, but we had planned everything, and we have the tools available, so we could just migrate everything in that 1 month. So we had planned capture migration, but these kind of things exist on timelines that you have to take into account when you think about migration. Good question. Yeah?
Do they have any governmental institutions migrating to the cloud? The problem is that I have a lot, most of my customers, and they are all German, and they're fair and square and all correct and everything.
Yeah.
They do not want to move to cloud. I mean, I don't care. I just sell services, licenses, and I would like to keep. But the point is that they jump to other solutions.
Yeah, so we have customers, they don't want to go to cloud. At the same time, when we started talking with them and going through the details, might be easier to go back in slides. Not in this one. So when I started mapping this with the customers on the public sector side also, they usually start being like, oh shit. Because when you start putting boxes here, what are you using? They start being like, oh, this is not that good to change the tool. Like, it's not going to be easy.
It's not about to change the tool. It's about data residency or whatever. It's, I mean,
Yeah.
just for an example, we have the police. Do you think they will move to the cloud and say like, okay, I have all the data of all the criminals and so on the cloud? It's kind of risky. It's what it sounds.
Let me
What would you suggest to them?